And away we go. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome one and all to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be looking at some clips from the news, having a little bit of discussion, a little dialogue with those of you who were able to join us for the live portion. And if you are listening somewhere else and you would like to join the live portion, you can find us Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ScrewTube, on Coffee Talk and Prepper University. That's at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University. You can also find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Coffee Talk Chat, and fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. And I'm being joined by one feline so far today, and that is Daniel, washing up in the chair behind me. Daniel keeping me company. Miss Kitty was here, but she walked away. Now, for the benefit of those of you who are listening and not able to see, I do read through as many of the comments as is reasonable. So I'll go ahead and say hello to some of the people that have been able to chime in so far. I see Spectre is here, as well as Helter, Dragon, Camilla, Chris, Chillin' Dave, Brian, Jane is here, Big Shooter from Chicago, Sean is here from Illinois, so on and so forth. How is everybody doing today? Hope you're all doing well. Yeah, Jane says Daniel loves you. I suppose so. He does wake me up in the middle of the night. And Bertrat, it says 4 a.m. Saturday morning in O. Where is O? Where is O? And Sven said they had a cat running for country commissioner in Michigan. Hopefully he'll win. Can't be any worse than anyone else. Anyway, actually, Jane, I'm glad you're there today because I want to do a little clarification. We talked about the protest signs yesterday, and I made the observation that I thought it was a really interesting coincidence that the protest signs that were being used by the anti-protesters or the counter-protesters in the UK were nearly identical to the ones that are being used in the US against Donald Trump. You know, the signs that are pink on the bottom and yellow on top, long wooden stick, are all the same size, same font and everything. And I had said that they said Black Lives Matter, and they did say Black Lives Matter on some of the signs, but you couldn't see it because they changed the image when I pulled up the story. So I found the older story, and now you can see it. And I just wanted to clarify why I said, because some of them said stop the far right on the bottom and refugees welcome on top. And some of the signs said Black Lives Matter on the bottom and refugees welcome on top. And so for clarification, there's the picture of the other signs, just so that you can see that I'm not just making it up. I do try to back up a lot of what I say, or at least encourage people to do the research themselves, because I'm not just inventing the stories. I may have some weird opinions from time to time, but I'm not making up the stories themselves that I'm reading or going over. So there you see it says, actually on the very top, there's a white strip on the top that says stand up to racism. The yellow part says what refugees welcome, and the bottom part says Black Lives Matter. And then, of course, the other signs that are pink say the exact same post, except the pink part says stop the far right. So just for clarification, and of course, that is the counter protesters in the UK, who I believe are staged. I think that it's staged. I think that they were brought out there and that it was arranged. That the original protests may have been organic. They may have been prodded, but they were mostly organic, I think. Stuff like this is set up. Somebody printed the signs, somebody organized those people. Somebody told them where to go and what to do. Chillin says, anyone and everyone can come here through the front door, not sneaking over the border. And yeah, I agree with that. You know, like I said, we've talked about it plenty of times. If you came here the right way and you're going to do the right thing, I got nothing to say. What can I say about that if you're contributing? These people are not. I'll put it to you like this. At least when people were just sneaking across from the South, they would work when they got here. When's the last time that you saw a bunch of Middle Easterns or a bunch of Nigerians or something, or a bunch of Chinese people stripping a roof or cutting down trees in someone's yard? You won't find them. Excuse me, you won't find them. But you'll see plenty of people from like Ecuador and Peru and El Salvador and stuff doing it though, right? You will see that. You will see that. And going back into, it's Semper Fi. Semper Fi has joined us. Since we were on the subject, somebody mentioned a K-bar yesterday. Here's something for Semper Fi. Does that look familiar? I don't know how long ago you were in the Marines. I don't know how long ago you were in the Marines. That's the real deal, wooden handle and all. It's a good knife. It's well balanced, actually. Very well balanced. I like that one. And Tuck has joined us as well. Glad you could make it today, Tuck. On to the Minnesota governor. And this is the, I'm going to see if I can pull up this image. This is the meme that started it all, okay? I can't read it all because it's a little blurry. A little bit blurry here, but I'm going to open this image up. See if I can open this image up real quick. Here it comes. This is a meme that's been getting shared. And Sven says, I have a friend that's a veteran, lost a leg, is hearing and smell, and illegal immigrants get more than 5 times what he gets for disability for nearly giving his life. He gets nearly 5 times less. And that's a sad thing. And I've been hearing a lot of stories like that. Recently. Oh yeah, there you go. What is his name? While I'm getting further into this, Cruising wants to know why it's called a K-bar. I'm sure Semper Fi can certainly answer that question. So here's the image, and I answered on this image, and I got a lot of flack for it. It says J.D. Vance, military job description, correspondent, served 4 years, highest rank attained, E4. Tim Waltz, military job description, command sergeant major, served 24 years, highest rank attained, E9. And it goes on to say a couple of other things here about medals or whatever. I can't read them because it's fuzzy. And the person suggests here, do the math. I guess because Tim Waltz had a higher rank and was in the military longer than J.D. Vance, that means he's better. And I had commented simply that he didn't retain the rank of sergeant major because he was demoted. And man, the hellfire that I received for that. The hellfire that I received for that. For claiming that he was demoted, which he was. He left the service as an E8, not an E9. He was no longer a sergeant major anymore because he quit. He left the service 2 years early. He was never on a battlefield. He never went to war. And comparing their service records doesn't mean that one's better than the other. But I got hell for it. Mind your own business. If you weren't in the military, you can't speak on this. And it's like, okay, you don't know who I am. How do you know if I'm in the military or not? And I can only talk about someone who was in the military if I was also in the military. That doesn't make any sense. That makes no sense at all. I mean, seriously, one person commented that, so what if he left 2 years early? Isn't 24 years enough? So you think that the tenure, the amount of time that he was in the military, counts as opposed to what he did in the military, his merits. Remember, he left to avoid deployment. He was never stationed anywhere more dangerous than Italy, as far as I know. That comment had to have been made by somebody who was a union organizer. Tenure is more important than merit. And let me see if I can catch up a couple of comments here really quick. Brian says that's the main knife used by the United States in World War II. Chris says no one wants tampon waltz. Dawn says guy killed a bear, thought he said K-bar. Trying to catch up here. And Tuck said K-bar was the name of the company that made them. K-A/BAR, that is. And then Semperfi explained that in better detail there. Named from a letter Union Cutlery Company received in 1920 from an Alaskan hunter who used the knife to kill a bear after his rifle jammed. I'll leave that up there for a second so you can read it. I wanted to share this because this is the kind of rhetoric that's been getting kicked around. The fact that he was in the military longer does not mean that he was a better soldier. It does not mean that he's more deserving or smarter. It doesn't mean he did anything in the military. We don't know what he did. I don't know his full service record. I don't even know if it's true that he was actually in the service for 24 years. At least I'm willing to look it up. Sven says, I'm a veteran and the first one to tell you 10% of all veterans are dipshits, just like every other part of society. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised it's not more than that. T. Kane says exactly quality over quantity. Quality over quantity. And whether I'm in the military or not, if somebody is in the military or was and speaks on something or projects something that isn't true, like he talked about being in combat or carrying weapons in war, he's never been in a war, things like this are considered stolen valor by people who contributed something. And yeah, you know what? I will talk about it, whether you like it or not. I will talk about it. You can talk about any subject you want. It's the same thing where you hear a feminist say, well, you're not a woman. What right do you have to talk about, say, abortion, for example? I'll talk about it. Why not? I bet you'll talk about something affecting men. You're not a man. Shut up. How about that? See, now I'm mansplaining. More on the Waltz here. This is from The Reason. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz used C virus relief money on things that had nothing to do with the pandemic. Are you surprised? He's got kind of big jowls. He's got like a big mouth. Like he stuffed his mouth full of mashed potatoes. He's got like a puppet head. It's weird. Anyways, now that he's been named Vice President Kamala Harris's running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz's handling of the C virus pandemic is getting a fresh round of scrutiny. And for good reason. As reasons Robbie Soves detailed yesterday, Walz was a, quote, tyrant during the pandemic who forced masks onto children as young as 5, placed strict limits on even outdoor gatherings, and encouraged Minnesotans to report their neighbors for violations of social distancing rules that we now know were not backed by science. What are you going to do about it? This happened in a lot of states. Another aspect of Walz's pandemic record also deserves a closer look: how Minnesota used its share of the federal stimulus dollars distributed via the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan that we couldn't afford. A quick review of the Treasury Department state and local fiscal recovery funds database reveals numerous line items that seem to have little or nothing to do with the pandemic. Are you surprised? Let me pause this so it doesn't screw me up here. I'll try to. It's not letting me. For example, Waltz oversaw the use of more than $4.3 million across two line items to cover parking costs at state facilities for state employees and visitors. The state used another $1 million to fund a study into the feasibility of paid family leave. Wow, that's useful. And another $1 million to fund a station-wide gun safety advertising campaign. State employees in the Minnesota Department of Corrections got more than $1 million in overtime pay. Thanks to the ARP stimulus, $7.8 million was distributed to 2 homeless shelters in the Twin Cities to cover additional costs. $929,866 line item for small business development to teach minority and women-owned businesses how to qualify for a state contract. Another $1.8 million funded a grant program for the victims of crime. $1.24 million was spent on Minnesota's Grow Your Own grant program, a state-run initiative that helps recruit teachers and other school employees. The Girl Scouts got almost $1 million for an outreach program in low-income communities. What do the Girl Scouts do? What do the Girl Scouts do? What have they done besides their parents sell cookies in front of Walmarts for the last 20 years? Can anyone answer that? I'm curious. And it goes on and on here. State distributed $11 million to the Minnesota Zoo, $3.8 million to the Science Museum. Yeah. $237,000 for a movie theater relief grant. Basically, they didn't know what to do with the money and they threw it all over the place. That's what happened. Oh, Chris, you're naughty. Chris says he stuffs his mouth with tampons. That's not where it goes, Chris. Didn't you watch South Park? Didn't you see that episode? Jane says he married 2 veterans a while ago and birthed 1. Does this count for anything? No. If you weren't in the military, apparently you can't talk about it. Big Shooter says he heard Vance is connected with the Cheneys, which scares me. If true, I don't like the left, but the left like war hawks aren't the answer either. We don't need more neocons running the government again. And Chillin says if you can't toss back a shot or two, so you can't always talk in a side conversation there. Side conversation there. I try to stay out of the side conversations. While we were on the subject of J.D. Vance, who of course they're calling him the tampon king or something. There's some term they're using to describe him because of the whole tampons in the bathroom thing, and it's being lauded by the Democratic Party because they were saying yes, he was brave enough to put tampons in the schools. The schools already had tampons, just not in the boys' bathroom. Not in the boys' bathroom. Sven said Girl Scouts donate money to Planned Parenthood to further target black communities. Ow, I've heard that. I have heard that they fund Planned Parenthood. All the more reason to stay the hell away from them. It's a damn shame, all these institutions that have been ruined over the last few years, isn't it? All these institutions that have, like, some of them more than a century behind them, like the Boy Scouts, that they just don't even matter anymore. I wouldn't have put my kid anywhere near the Boy Scouts at this point, especially not with all the interviews that I did with the Boston Phoenix, and how many gay men in those interviews had fantasies about the Boy Scouts. So no way. No way. Speaking of not using funding correctly, now Shapiro's under fire for the same thing. Shapiro was under fire for the same exact thing, and this popped into the news in the last couple of days. If I can just open up properly. Come on, Restream, you can make it. And this is from the Center Square. It says union dues illegally funded Shapiro's campaign in 2022. What? The union doing something shady with a politician? You got to be kidding me. The Pennsylvania State Education, it's always the education union. You notice that? How often educational unions pop up with this stuff? Pennsylvania State Education Association funneled nearly $1.5 million in membership dues into Governor Josh Shapiro's 2022 campaign, according to recent complaints filed with the State Office of Attorney General. In the 44-page document, the Freedom Foundation says the teachers union took extra steps to conceal the donation by routing it through unauthorized political funds, and the Democratic Governors Association violating state and federal campaign finance laws. Of note, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz chaired that association. Whoa! Though he wasn't selected for the role until December, he stepped down earlier this week after Vice President Kamala Harris selected him as her running mate for the November general election. Wow, that is an interesting connection. However, other officers of the organization, as well as the union, are identified and linked to signatures found on paperwork for the alleged transfers. Maxford Nelson, Director of Research and Government Affairs for the Foundation, says that these signatures suggest officials willfully misappropriated the funds, especially considering the union followed the proper protocol for reporting separate transfers totaling $800,000 that supported the campaign using voluntary member donations, not their union dues. In the process, PSEA executives displayed as much contempt for their own members as they did for the Commonwealth law and voters. Pennsylvania teachers deserve to know that their union's assurances that the dues deducted from their hard-earned paychecks aren't being used to back political candidates are worth no more than a politicians' campaign promises. And that goes back to something that I've said a lot about unions. I don't think unions should be allowed to be involved in politics at all. And it's all too often that I see unions funneling money into these politicians. They shouldn't have anything to do with it. You should be taking care of your members. Period. Their union dues, the money that they pay these unions, should not be siphoned off, buried in paperwork, and then grifted into some politician's campaign fund, which is what happened here and why it's under investigation. I don't know if anything will come out of it. I don't know anything if anything will ever come out of it, but we will see. Cruising says if unions can't be involved in politics, then politicians shouldn't be able to legislate the workplace my union members work in. No, they shouldn't. They shouldn't. And no politician should be telling a business what it can and cannot do. And where it gets murky is because you're dealing with public school. You're dealing with public school, which is, funded by the state and the federal government. Semper says, not related to the topic, a passenger plane carrying 62 people crashed into a residential area in Brazil. Video shows it tumbling to the ground. Really? I guess that just happened. That's unfortunate. But no, the government, I don't like the idea of government being involved in school anyway. You see the damage that it's done. You see the damage that it's done over the years. And that's why I wanted to pull this back up here, because we talked about this a little bit yesterday. Let me see if I can find the right article. And I wanted to open an article on the subject. And actually, I'm glad you're here today, Cruising. I talked about the NASA study yesterday about geniuses and that they blamed public school for why people are stupid. Okay? And I found an article on the subject so that I could demonstrate what I was talking about, since I was talking off the top of my head at the time. And this is from a website called Your Story. NASA's study on children, how traditional schooling reduces creative spark. says George Land's eye-opening findings in a study commissioned by NASA highlight a concerning decline in creative genius from childhood to adulthood. The traditional educational setup emerges as a potential culprit, sparking discussion on fostering divergent thinking to revive innate creativity. And this is essentially what I was talking about yesterday. In the late 1960s, NASA was keen on hiring innovative minds. To achieve this, they sought to understand the nature of creative genius and commissioned a study led by George Land. The focus was on young children aged 3 to 5 as they embarked on a journey to decipher creativity. A group of 1,600 kids enrolled in a Head Start program were subjected to a creativity test initially crafted for NASA recruits. The results were startling. 98% of these youngsters were labeled as creative geniuses. However, a follow-up revealed a concerning trend. The genius tag dropped to 30% by age 10, 12% by age 15, and at dismissal, that is, when they graduated 12th grade, roughly less than 2% maintained the level that would be considered creative genius. And ultimately, George Land attributed this to the failing of public school. That because it was like a 15-year-long study. It's one of the longest studies ever done in the United States. Going from Head Start to 12th grade, which would be about 15 years. So if you put your 3-year-old in Head Start and they go K1, K2, first grade through 12, it's about 15 years of their life that they've wasted, basically. And that NASA came to the conclusion, George Land came to the conclusion that creativity, natural curiosity and learning, cognitive understanding were crushed by the public school system. That they were basically generating morons. And this study concluded in the early 80s. Can you imagine how bad it is now? Could you possibly imagine? And Jane says they believe it, glad they have no children to help in school anymore. And Cruising says government forces public school to cater to the bottom quintile. It means the top quintile doesn't get supported, so they wilt. We put our effort into making sure welfare papers can be filled out. Head Start, in general, is a waste. The gain in academic performance washed out by 3rd grade. Your kids get way more from being at home with an involved family member learning practical things. I agree. Yeah, Head Start is a disaster. Head Start is where it starts. Head Start is literally government-run daycare. Government-run daycare. And this is why, I figured this out when I was in junior high school. It's like, why am I going here? This is a waste. That's when I discovered hooky and started not even bothering to go. And nobody cared. And it didn't make a difference anyways. I knew then that I wasn't learning anything and that I was wasting my time. I think most people realize that. And they just do it because it's the institution. It's what's required. It's what everybody has to do. You don't have a choice. They force you to go. They force you to go and they stifle you. My entire school experience is a blur. I don't remember anything except for a handful of fights. But I do remember in great detail the 1 year that I was in Montessori school before kindergarten. I can remember almost everything I did because it was a positive, engaging learning environment. And then the rest of everything involving public school was just sickening. It was a waste. And I've watched this from the, not just from my own experience, but with my kids, who I ended up schooling personally, and except for my youngest, who went to private school, and then his mother, when she got custody, dumped him in public school. I've seen the homeschooling aspect. I've seen the private school and the public school aspect, both personally and professionally. And your best bet is homeschooling. Your second best bet is a private school that you can be involved with, so you make sure they don't do anything weird. And public school just shouldn't even be an option, unfortunately. Tuck says public school was a waste of my time, especially age 13 to 18. I learned there was another way, but I learned it in the last week of my senior year. Oh no. I mean, hell, I dropped out in the 10th grade. I just never went back to school. I decided not to go back. They didn't care. They didn't care. First couple of months of the 10th grade, I stopped going to school and I went and got my GED and walked away from it. Went to work again. I was already working anyway, so what the hell difference did it make? And stuff like this, stories like this are important. And people don't see them or hear them or read about them. This is 1,600 kids that George Land studied for like 15 years and watched the public school system crush them. Watch them crush these kids, crush their creativity, crush their spatial relations, crush their natural curiosity, and couldn't even be bothered to uphold the basics, reading, writing, and arithmetic, which is all they should be learning there. And you wonder why so many people are so dumb. They want you that way, trust me. Jane says, I know when my son in grade school, they wanted to give him ADHD medication because he seemed hyper. He was not hyper at all and learned later in school. The school gets extra funding. Yeah, if it's because then they'll put him on an IEP, an individual educational plan. And if there's an IEP, it increases the funding per student. Increases the funding per student. Unfortunately. Unfortunately. This is a local story. It's actually two local stories, but they both go together. And I wanted to talk about this. Because of how bad these people are. This just goes to show you something about communities. They're both Atlanta stories. Cruising says that you are not the average high school dropout. It's like the story of Bill Gates dropping out. Most dropouts are functionally illiterate, not literate, thoughtful, critical thinkers that are bored. Yeah. I mean, I saw no reason for it. I was working. I saw no other way to escape my situation at home except to work and to get an apartment. I had an apartment early. You know, I was moved out and had my GED and was moved out before I was like 18 and in a studio apartment and working 50 hours a week in a refrigerated warehouse in South Boston. I had to get up at like 4:30 in the morning and catch the very first beeline trolley to get there. It was not an easy life. It was not an easy life. But local Atlanta story, and there's two of these that I wanted to share. Okay. The first is Buckhead, and this is Atlanta News First. Is that coming up yet? Okay. It says, eviction of popular Buckhead's bar leads to chaos as crowds take liquor and furniture, according to attorneys. So here we go. The Red Martini restaurant and lounge is officially closed with everything inside dumped in their parking lot late Wednesday afternoon. The business was evicted from the property off Peachtree Road because of a dispute with the landlord, according to attorneys from the club. Every Wednesday, we come out and have R&B Wednesdays, but when it doesn't look like we'll be having the opportunity, who said the club would have normally been packed that night. No warning. They're out of a job now. A large crowd gathered around alcohol, furniture, and other items dumped in the parking lot after the eviction at 1 p.m. Witnesses at the bar told Atlanta News First it appeared people walked off with alcohol. So they have video footage of this. I'll try to play it. Okay, it doesn't look like it wants to.
Para hacer un live stream.
Okay, I don't speak that language. I used to know a little Spanish, but I don't If you don't use it, you lose it. So there it is. It's a full-blown riot going on out there practically. Oh, no, they're not too rowdy, but I mean, they're out there. They got shopping carts. This is the people from the neighborhood coming and looting the eviction process is what it is. That's a drone footage from the Atlanta First News. So they're stealing the liquor. The police are there. That's a police officer walking up right here. Two of them. I guess they're trying to interfere. This guy's taking chairs right in front of the cops. The cops aren't doing anything. They're just standing there, both of them. This guy's walking away with chairs. Now, I said this ties into another story. Look at all the sofas and everything. People are over here picking through stuff, taking lamps. This woman's taking a table. This guy's filling up a garbage can with liquor bottles. Help yourself, guys. Now, I said this story ties in. Here's the second one. All right, because there are two stories on this. Let me see. Where's the other one? Here we go. And this one is a Clayton County News article, okay? Because oddly enough, whatever was going on, it happened to two businesses. And I'll make my point here in a moment. And Cougar's here. Haven't seen you for a minute. Says I got my autistic son off of 2 poisons so far and replaced herbs in New Jersey, not you. That's the government way, and I've talked about that in great detail in the past. That's where you in loco parentis law applies to the system. Use the in loco parentis, which is supposed to act on behalf of the parent for the child. If this thing would just hold still for a minute. I'm having a lot of trouble getting this open. Did this pop up yet? Let me close this here because that particular video is giving me a really hard time. Okay. Let me know if I'm still here. Let me know if I'm still here. Because I don't know what the hell's going on now. Cruising says I could use a new couch and a couple of club chairs. Yeah, I'm still in the corner. It's not doing right. Something weird happened with the video. And Dental Misorder is here, speaking in Spanish. The other, yeah, Kruger says still here. Tuck says 5-5. Yeah, it acted weird. It acted really weird. And I'm trying to get this to do right. Trying to get this to behave properly. And Dental says the sound is good. Yeah, it stuck me in the corner. Restream got weird. There I go. I don't know what the hell happened. JJ says that I'm still here. Before image. Looks like it might try to do it again. And that's frustrating for me because I do like to try to show the article that I'm actually reading so that people know I'm not just making it up. So people know I'm not just making it up. Because in Clayton County at the same time that this was happening in Buckhead, the parking lot, police and deputies had to surround a massive pile of merchandise in the parking lot of Beauty Mart on Upper Riverdale Road. The Clayton County Sheriff's Office confirmed to channel that the business is being evicted from the building. Before long, dozens of people had surrounded the items, prompting police to section off the merchandise with police tape. News Chopper 2 flew over the area and saw people surrounding the area that police had surrounded. Because of the shopping plaza, police have to shut off access, including blocking. So oh wow, and I'm trying to get this open because the footage of this crowd is just crazy. It's not going to let me open it. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to shut the video down. It's not doing right. Anyways, so at the same time, there it goes bouncing around. At the same day that the bar was evicted, a beauty supply store was evicted, and the reason that the point that I'm trying to make, these are these locally owned businesses that everybody's always telling you to support, and the people in these communities tell you that they come out for and support your local business, and in this case, in the Atlanta area, support these local Black-owned businesses. And the moment these businesses are in trouble, you're like vultures, and you come out and you tear them apart, and you steal everything from them, and you throw a fit, and you loot them. I mean, they had to block roads at the beauty supply store, the police and the sheriff's office, to prevent the massive crowds of people from rushing in and stealing the hair supplies from a store that they frequented. No love for the community. And Dental says the stream's roboting out a little bit. Not sure if it's my end or not. I think it's over here. I think there was a problem opening that particular link. I think it was that particular link. It was just giving me a hard time. So much for I don't talk to me about supporting local business, especially if you're going to marginalize it by saying, oh, support local Black businesses. Those were both locally owned Black businesses, and you came out and you robbed them at the first opportunity. You didn't come out there to try to help them. You didn't come out there to try to stop anyone else from stealing. You got shopping carts and filled it up with merchandise. That's what you did. That's what you did to your local businesses and your local communities. Raccoon says, that's sad. I bet all the wigs and extensions went first. No kidding. And Chris says, same, mine was lagging for a second. I think it's Restream having a problem with that particular article. There's another article I wanted to get back to. We talked about this the other day, and that's the Ellisville gym. I have a little bit of an update on it. I don't think it's in this article, but I wanted to talk about it because I've got some more information about that subject. Now, the Ellisville gym problem is the transmogrified man, and this is KMOX News Radio St. Louis. Ellisville gym revokes the membership of transgender woman at Center of Investigation by Missouri Attorney General. And you might remember this. We talked about it earlier this week because no one is talking about this. And I'm like, wait for this place to get blasted. Lifetime Fitness in Ellisville, Missouri says they've revoked the membership of the transgender woman at the center of a criminal investigation. A spokesperson for Lifetime Fitness in Ellisville confirmed to KMOX Monday that Chris Montano, the trans woman whose usage of the women's locker room has opened an investigation by the Missouri Attorney General, has had her membership revoked over social media posts that they deemed could affect the safety and security of the club. Okay. KMOX spoke with Montano, who says she was pulled into the office Monday by a manager along with multiple officers. They told, quote, they proceeded to tell me somebody had called in a suicide risk on me, which was completely wrong, said Montano. He said that on his social media. So, blah, blah, blah. This only talks about the fact that they don't tell you what happened in the gym. They don't tell you they don't tell you anything in the article, but I know something about why I wanted to follow up on it. Also have some additional information. Now, what's going on with the transmogrified guy? See if I can find the image of him here. Okay, that's him. That's him. I'll leave that up there for a minute. Okay. That he's been going to this Lifetime for a while. a little while, not too long, but a little while, and that he hangs around the pool in a bikini, a women's bikini, or stands around naked in the women's locker room or shower room, okay? And that it's been freaking people out, especially since apparently a lot of young girls go there. And parents have been complaining, all right? This person is homeless. He lives in his car. It's not actually a car, it's more like a minivan. So he lives in his van in the parking lot of the Lifetime Fitness. He is not out of work. He actually makes a lot of money working in IT. And he sits in his car on his laptop using Lifetime Fitness's Wi-Fi and works from home, for lack of a better description. He posts on social media about terminating himself and about the fact that he owns a lot of firearms. Okay? That's what was known about it at the time. And people complained. And since the complaints, the manager who gave him the membership, and keeping in mind his license says female, okay? So this is as much Missouri's fault as anyone else. The manager who gave him the membership was terminated, okay? His membership was revoked. By the way, the membership in this particular Lifetime Fitness starts at $200 a month. It's not cheap. And the police escorted him out, told him not to come back. All right. Let me see. Jane says when they were in California, they heard that homeless get gym memberships so they can bathe, but this guy is confused. It's going to get worse. Now, here's what's been revealed since then that is still not in any of these news articles. Okay, it's still not in any of these news articles. Since his membership's been revoked, he has graduated from talking about firearms in his social media posts to showing them, taking pictures of his weapons in his vehicle. He's also been stalking some of the gym members. The people who complained about him, there's police reports now that they've been coming home and finding him sitting in his van in front of their house. Things like that. He's stalking members of the gym. Furthermore, he's the divorced father of one child. Okay? Divorced father of one child whose wife used to work at that Lifetime Fitness. Gee, I wonder why he's hanging around there. Something is really wrong with this guy, and they need to reel it in now before he runs in there blazing away. Because if it happens, I won't be surprised. He is really imbalanced. He is really, really imbalanced. Jane says, does this transformer have no private bits, look like a man, or is he more like a female? No, there is nothing feminine about him. Nothing. He has everything he identifies as. Oh, by the way, he doesn't exactly identify as a woman. He identifies as a lesbian. He identifies as a lesbian. That's what's been revealed. That's the story thus far. Like I said, nobody's talking about this stuff. Again, the article, I'll put the rest of the article right there. That's it. And this is from yesterday. This particular article. They're not talking about who this person is and how and the whole situation. He has talked about terminating himself. He is now showing firearms, so he does possess them. He is a fully functional physical male who claims to be a lesbian. He's stalking members now, showing up at their homes. Gary Edwards says he's a public menace. Exactly, he is. if I went on a social media post, if I went on, like, say, Facebook right now and said I was going to put a gun to my head, they'd find me and I would be on a 72-hour watch at the local hospital. Why is this guy still running around? Seriously. It's because they don't want to deal with the picketing. They don't want to deal with the protesters. Oh God, you're hurting somebody from the alphabet community. How dare you? Can't you just let this poor woman alone? She just wants to be recognized. JJ says, you know that nothing will be done until he harms someone despite the red flags. There's a lot of red flags. He was there looking for his wife. He's hoping she'll show up there sooner or later. That's why he was there. Because his ex, again, she used to work there. They just discovered that in the last few days. She used to be an employee there. He's waiting for her. And if he can't find her, he'll find somebody else, which is why now he's stalking the people that complained about him. That's scary. That's scary. And nobody's going to, this should be big news. And it warrants more than the Attorney General fronting an investigation. Someone is going to get hurt. Even if it's him, you'll still have something to answer for. Even if it's him that gets hurt. Let's say he goes, because one person, one of the ladies who said that he was outside in the van, that her husband grabbed a rifle and came out. He was like, we ain't doing this. You're not hurting my wife. And that he left. But look what it's coming to already. Look what that's coming to already. And what's going to be done about it. And Dental says another case of individual was known to the FBI. At the very least, he's known to the Attorney General's office. And like I said, if I said that right now, if I went on X, I went on Instagram, whatever you got, and said, oh man, I don't know, man, and acted like I was going to hurt myself, they would find me, I bet you. They would find me and put me in a 72-hour watch to determine if I was mentally stable. But, I guess it's okay if it's somebody who identifies as transmogrified. We can't touch them. They're a privileged class now. They're on a pedestal. One more here to wrap it up, because I wanted to get back to this. We've talked about this a lot over the last few months. Fox News article, scandal-plagued Illinois mayor's expenses revealed by former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Lori Lightfoot, of all people. And there she is. Leprechaun. Lori the Leprechaun. She is a scary-looking woman. It says, former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot left residents dumbfounded after revealing the preliminary findings into an investigation in the alleged egregious misuse of funds by the Dolton, Illinois Mayor Tiffany Henyard. On Thursday night, Lightfoot revealed to residents the extent of Mayor Henyard's alleged misuse. Lightfoot stated that in April 2022, Dolton's general fund balance was $5.61 million. As of May 2024, now that's in the black. So the Dolton had an extra $5.5 million for emergencies. As of May 2024, they are in arrears, $3.65 million in debt under Henyard's watch. Lightfoot disclosed Henyard used the Village credit card to make purchases on Amazon, Target, Walgreens, Wayfair, and other retailers online. One jaw-dropping statement revealed that the mayor had spent $33,000 on January 5th just on Amazon purchases. These are somebody using the credit card and charging these amounts using your tax dollars, according to Leprechaun Lightfoot. Oh, wow. Gary says, living inside a getaway van with tons of guns, the absurdity of today's America. Well, not necessarily the America, but just the individuals in it. Just the individuals in it. I mean, I have firearms. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. You know, it depends on the individual. And Gary says, Lori, my precious, yeah. He doesn't like you. Nobody likes you. Yes, my precious. Lightfoot, who was hired by the village of Dalton in April as a special investigator to look in Yehendra, said that the preliminary investigation revealed the police officers were grossly misusing taxpayer funds. The investigation revealed 2 police officers had received overtime pay exceeding annual salaries. One officer's salary for the fiscal year of 2024 was $87,295 and received an additional $114,800 in overtime pay. The other officer, and these are the 2 police that are always with the mayor. Remember, she has 2 police that she parades around with a salary of $73,515, received an additional $102,077 in overtime pay for the year in 2024. That's just since January. The reports have been a pressure point for the city, which has a population of roughly 20,000 people. You know what sucks is that they're getting fleeced even more by Lightfoot, who since April, so for the last 3 months, has been charging $400 an hour to do this investigation that anybody could have done. That's what Jane is saying. I wish I was rich and made $400 an hour. No kidding. And Delo's here. He says I watched the replay. Oh, I'm glad you popped in, though, Delo. $400 an hour for this investigation. And what's it going to change or prove or do? If the mayor has veto power over the city council, because they've tried to vote her out, I think twice now, and she vetoed their vote and stayed in power because of some weirdness with the way the law is in Dalton. There she is being snarky with her gold microphone. She probably got that on Amazon too. Yeah, no kidding though, Jane. Thinking about that, I wish I was rich and made $400 an hour. No kidding. I could certainly use the money. I could certainly use the money. I need all the help I can get, especially with all these cats. And JJ thinks if you say Look's names 3 times, she shows up just like Beetlejuice. Well, she looks like Beetlejuice. Hell, she also looks like Leprechaun. Leprechaun. It makes me think of Wayne's World, the movie. And Wayne kept saying Leprechaun, and it freaks Garth out. Leprechaun, stop it, Wayne. You know that movie scares me. Yeah, Spectre, Jane says, being snarky. Yeah, I mean, look at her face, though. Look at that attitude. You can feel the attitude coming off of Henyard in that picture. You can feel it. She's telling somebody off right there. I can hear her neck popping. Probably swaying it back and forth. I'm the mayor up in here. Oh my God. Spectre says, what are you doing playing a clip of Beetlejuice? Oh, you must see Lori Lightfoot again. There she is. That'll make you feel better. Lori Lightfoot. I don't know how these people stay in power. I just don't. Well, they couldn't do it if people weren't so dumb. If they weren't so dumb. And Brian made a donation to the channel. Thank you, Brian. A little donation to help out the felines. Always appreciated. Need all the help we can get. And of course, there's Daniel. Daniel's ignoring me because he's asleep. Sleeping in the chair right behind me. Sleeping in the chair right behind me. Keeping me company. Keeping vigil over the podcast, as it were, because why not? Because why not, ladies and gentlemen? Surrounded by cats, but that's okay. That is okay. I'll show you a picture of Daniel, since I can't pick him up right now. and we'll close out with that. Hold on a second. Any second. There they are. That's again, Daniel and Dusty. Right after we first found them in the bushes out here. So with that, I will go ahead and start wrapping things up. Again, you were listening to and or watching Coffee Talk. And you could join the live portion Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. So if you wanted to ever join the live portion, if you're listening somewhere else. Special thanks to Brian for making a donation to the channel. Very much appreciated. I need all the help I can get. Thanks to everyone else who was able to join us here today. Hope you got something out of the conversation. And we will see you again